Not a call, not a conversation, a text. I've been thinking, maybe we should break up. I was sitting at my desk, 31 years old, staring at quarterly sales numbers that suddenly felt completely irrelevant. The office around me hummed with normal life. Keyboards clicking, phones ringing, someone laughing near the coffee machine, while my phone vibrated quietly beside my laptop. Her name was Emma. She was 28, and she had been pulling this exact stunt for months. I didn't feel hurt when I read the message. I didn't feel surprised. What I felt, for the first time in a very long while, was relief. Like someone had finally said out loud what had been hanging between us, unspoken, toxic, exhausting. She used breakup threats the way other people use sarcasm. Every few weeks, whenever I didn't bend to her schedule, her moods, her sudden demands, she would reflect and decide we weren't working. The last time it was because I couldn't skip work for her friend's random Tuesday barbecue. This time, I didn't even bother asking what I'd done wrong. I stared at the screen for about 20 seconds, long enough to be sure. Then I typed back. "I'm with you. Your stuff will be on the porch in an hour." The typing bubbles appeared instantly, disappeared, reappeared. Then the flood came. "Wait, what?" I was kidding. "Babe, I was just mad." "Call me." "This isn't funny." "I was testing you." There it was, the confession, delivered without shame. I didn't reply. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I silenced my phone and went back to work, not on sales data, but on something far more overdue. Undoing her. 2 years of slowly occupying my space without ever officially moving it in. 2 years of clutter, control, and emotional games disguised as communication. 2 years of threats meant to make me chase. I packed calmly, methodically, like someone finally reclaiming her home. 40 minutes later, 5 boxes and 4 trash bags sat neatly on my porch. Bathroom, bedroom, living room, kitchen. Everything she'd ever insisted belonged there, suddenly reduced to cardboard and consequences. I took a photo and sent one final text. "Everything's out. Pick it up within 2 hours or it's donated." My phone exploded. "You can't do this. I pay rent. I'm coming over." "You're overreacting." It was a joke. A joke. Like joking about destroying my things when I didn't choose her over my own life. Like joking about being single online to punish me. Like joking about breaking up to see if I loved her enough. 15 minutes later, her car screamed into my driveway. That was when the real drama began. And that was when I realized she didn't expect me to agree. She expected me to beg. I was 31 when Emma and I reached that breaking point, but the story didn't begin with manipulation or ultimatums. It began the way most long relationships do, quietly, comfortably, with the illusion of stability. I worked in sales, structured, deadline-driven, the kind of job that rewards consistency and punishes chaos. My life before her was simple in a way I didn't fully appreciate until it was gone. Clean apartment, predictable routines, friends I saw regularly, a sense that my space was mine. Emma was 28 when we met. She was magnetic in an unpolished way, expressive, emotional, dramatic without meaning to be. At least that's what I told myself early on. We met through friends, started dating casually, then more seriously. She never officially moved in, but over time, she moved through my life like gravity. A toothbrush here, clothes there, then decor, then expectations. At first, I thought it was intimacy. She framed it that way. Why wouldn't my things be here? If we're serious, this is normal. Couples share space. So I let it happen. She didn't pay rent. She contributed to groceries occasionally, usually after reminding me how much she could spend if she wanted to. She talked often about aesthetics, vibes, how a home should feel. Suddenly, my apartment was full of things I didn't choose. Throw pillows that made sleeping uncomfortable, plants I had to water, kitchen gadgets she demanded, then complained, took up space. Emotionally, it followed the same pattern. Emma had strong opinions about how love should look. She believed devotion meant flexibility, mine. If I couldn't change plans, I was choosing work over her. If I didn't answer immediately, I was being distant. If I set a boundary, I was being cold. The first time she threatened to break up, it shocked me. She said it casually, almost playfully, after I told her I couldn't leave work early. I panicked, apologized, reassured her. She softened instantly. Crisis over. That was the moment I unknowingly taught her something dangerous. that threatening to leave gave her power. From then on, it became her go-to move. Every disagreement escalated into, maybe we're not working. Every inconvenience turned into a referendum on my love. She called it honesty. I called it anxiety. I told myself relationships took effort, compromise, emotional intelligence. What I didn't call it was manipulation. My friends noticed before I did. They joked about how little my place looked like me anymore. They raised eyebrows when Emma tweeted she was basically single after a minor argument. I defended her. She's just expressive. She doesn't mean it like that. Her family saw it too, especially her mother, who often asked gentle questions about whether Emma was being too much. I laughed it off, said I could handle it, said relationships weren't perfect. But something shifted over time. I stopped pushing back, stopped questioning, stopped expecting peace. I learned the rules of her moods and lived accordingly. I avoided triggering the breakup threat the way people avoid landmines, carefully, constantly, exhausted. By the time that text arrived at my desk, the one that said maybe we should break up, it didn't feel like heartbreak. It felt like permission. Permission to stop performing. Permission to stop proving. Permission to finally let her say the words she'd been dangling like a weapon for 2 years. I didn't shock her by agreeing. I shocked her by meaning it. Looking back now, I can see exactly when the ground started to shift beneath my feet. At the time, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt gradual, subtle, like something slightly off that I kept adjusting myself around instead of questioning. I was 31, working in sales, structured by nature, someone who believed that consistency was a form of care. Emma was 28, emotional, expressive, and intense in a way that initially felt passionate. When we argued in the beginning, it came with tears and big words, but also quick resolutions. I mistook intensity for depth. The first breakup threat came over something small. I couldn't leave work early for her friend's last-minute Tuesday barbecue. She went quiet for a few hours, then sent a message saying maybe we weren't aligned anymore. I remember my heart racing, my fingers hovering over the phone as I rushed to reassure her. I didn't mean it like that, I told her. Work was crazy today. I'll make it up to you. She softened immediately. The storm passed. I didn't realize I had just reinforced a pattern. After that, the threats came more often. Not always explicit, but always implied. Sometimes I wonder if we're forcing this. Maybe we want different things. I just don't feel chosen right now. Every time, the responsibility landed on me to fix it, to prove something, to bend. Her friends fed into it. They framed relationships as tests of devotion. If I didn't drop everything for her, it meant I didn't love her enough. If I held a boundary, I was emotionally unavailable. Slowly, I started apologizing for things that weren't wrong. At home, her presence grew heavier. She still hadn't officially moved in, but her things multiplied. The bathroom filled with products. The bedroom stopped feeling restful. The living room became stage for social media instead of lived in. When I gently pushed back, she laughed it off. "You're so rigid," she'd say. "Relax." But emotionally, nothing was relaxed. She would joke about being single online after fights. She once threatened, laughing, to destroy my things when I chose a family event over her office happy hour. Every time I called it out, she waved it away. "I'm kidding. You're too sensitive. Why do you always take things so seriously?" Those words stuck with me more than I admitted. I started bracing myself before conversations, choosing words carefully, avoiding topics. The relationship stopped feeling like a place I could rest and started feeling like something I had to manage. I didn't leave, though. I told myself this was what commitment looked like, working through discomfort, staying. But underneath all of it, a quiet resentment was forming. Not loud enough to explode yet, but persistent enough to drain me. I was tired of being evaluated, tired of being tested, tired of feeling like love was something I had to earn over and over again. So when that text finally came, maybe we should break up, it didn't land like a threat anymore. It landed like the end of a game I no longer wanted to play. I was 31, sitting at my desk, staring at quarterly sales data that suddenly meant nothing. The office was loud in the way offices always are, phones ringing, keyboards tapping, someone laughing too hard near the break room. My phone buzzed once, softly, almost politely. Emma. She was 28, and she had been doing this to me for months. The message was short, casual, almost thoughtful on the surface. "I've been reflecting, and I think we should break up. This isn't working." I stared at it for a full 20 seconds. Not hurt, not shocked, just calm. Calm in a way that felt unfamiliar, like my nervous system had finally given up trying to react. This wasn't new. Emma used the idea of breaking up the way some people use sarcasm. Every few weeks, whenever I didn't bend fast enough or far enough, she'd pull this card. The last time was because I couldn't skip work for her friend's random Tuesday barbecue. She called it honesty. I'd started recognizing it as leverage. Something inside me clicked. I didn't type back immediately. I let myself feel the absence of panic, the absence of urgency. Then I replied, "I'm with you. Your stuff will be on the porch in an hour." The typing bubbles appeared instantly, disappeared, reappeared. Then the messages poured in. "Wait, what?" I was kidding. "Babe, I was just mad. Call me. This isn't funny. I was testing you." There it was, the truth, exposed without effort. I silenced my phone, not dramatically, just decisively. And instead of reopening my spreadsheet, I stood up from my desk and went home early. Not to cry, not to rage, but to pack. 2 years of her slowly occupying my space without ever officially moving in had to be undone. I started in the bathroom. 15 different conditioners, face creams lined up like soldiers, the expensive curling iron she insisted on owning but rarely used. When I cleared the cabinet, it looked empty in a way that felt clean, not sad. The bedroom was next. Clothes she kept just in case. Jewelry on my nightstand. Throw pillows that made sleeping uncomfortable. A fake fern, she said, elevated the room. I remembered looking at a framed photo from her sister's wedding. She looked radiant in it. I looked small, contained. The kitchen was the final insult. Artisanal teas, a blender used once, fancy martini glasses for social media cocktails. A slow cooker, she demanded, then complained took up too much space. 40 minutes, 5 boxes, 4 trash bags. Everything was neat, organized, final. My phone was a war zone. 52 missed calls, voicemails I didn't bother listening to. I snapped a photo of the boxes on the porch and sent one last message. "Everything's out. Pick it up within 2 hours or it's donated." Her reply came instantly. "You can't do this. I pay rent." She didn't. She had maybe paid for groceries 3 times in 6 months. "I'm coming over. We're talking. You're overreacting. It was a joke." A joke. Like when she jokingly threatened to shred my vintage concert posters because I went to my cousin's bachelor party instead of her office happy hour. Like when she jokingly tweeted she was single because I wouldn't buy her a designer necklace. 15 minutes later, her car tore into my driveway. And that was when the breakup stopped being a text message and turned into something much uglier. When his car screeched into the driveway, something inside me went completely still. Not fear, not regret, resolve. I was standing just inside my front door watching the porch camera feed on my phone. His car barely stopped before he was out. Mascara already streaking down his face, chest heaving like this was a scene he had rehearsed many times in his head. He didn't knock at first. He pounded. "Open the door," he shouted. "This is insane." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush. I didn't explain. I tapped the porch camera microphone and spoke evenly. "Your things are on the porch. Take them and leave." "This is crazy," he yelled back. "You're overreacting. It was a joke." A joke. I felt something sharp pass through my chest. Not pain, but recognition. Every time I had ignored that word before, it had cost me a little more of myself. Not this time. "I'm not going until we talk," he said. "If you don't leave," I replied, "I'll call the police for trespassing. Your choice." That finally slowed him down. He grabbed one of the boxes and hurled it toward the door. The dull thud echoed through my apartment. I didn't flinch. I had already grieved this relationship long before today. All that was left was cleanup. Then he did what he always did when he lost control. He called for backup. I watched on the screen as he sat down on the porch steps, phone on speaker. "Mom," he sobbed. "She's kicking me out over a text." I could hear his mother's voice clearly. "What did the text say?" There was a pause, a long one. "I said maybe we should break up," he admitted, but I was kidding. The silence that followed was louder than any shouting. "Daniel," his mother said finally, using his full name, "you didn't." "It was a test," he said quickly, "to see if she'd fight for me." Another pause. Then words I didn't expect. "Come home," his mother said. "We'll talk." She sided with me. I leaned my head back against the wall and let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. For the first time in 2 years, someone else was saying what I had been living with in private. He stayed on the porch another few minutes, pacing, muttering, trying to regain the upper hand. When it didn't come, he loaded the rest of his boxes into his car, slamming the trunk like punctuation. When he finally drove away, the quiet that followed felt different than before. This wasn't the quiet of uncertainty, it was the quiet of finality. I locked the door, slid down against it, and sat there on the floor for a moment. My hands were shaking now, but not because I missed him, because I had finally chosen myself without apologizing for it. And that, I would soon learn, was something he could not accept quietly. I thought that night would be the end of it. I truly did. I locked the door, cleaned up the box he had thrown, and went to bed believing that once someone hears a clear no, once they are faced with consequences instead of reassurance, they eventually stop. I underestimated how deeply Emma was attached not to me, but to control. 3 days later, her meltdown became public. Day 1 was denial. Long messages sent from different numbers, all saying the same thing in different tones. You know I didn't mean it. You're taking this too far. We just need to talk like adults. I didn't reply. Day 2 was rage. She called me heartless, cold, abusive. She told mutual friends I had snapped and thrown her out with no warning. Some believed her at first, until the screenshots started circulating. Her own words. Maybe we should break up. I was testing you. Day 3 was bargaining, mixed with something far more disturbing. At 1 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a text from a new number. We need to talk. I'm late. Late for what? I asked. My period. I might be pregnant. I stared at the screen, feeling nothing but exhaustion. We hadn't been intimate in over a month. She had told me I was emotionally distant. She had also been on the pill for years. Take a test, I replied calmly. If it's positive, lawyers will handle communication. Silence. No test, no follow-up, no baby. Just another tactic discarded when it didn't work. Then came social media. A tearful selfie appeared on her page with a caption about giving someone 2 years of her life and being thrown out like garbage over a misunderstanding. Her friends flooded the comments. Men are trash. You deserve better. His loss, Queen. Until one of our mutual friends commented, "Didn't you dump her, though?" The post was deleted within 45 minutes. She tried claiming I'd kept her belongings, invented sentimental items that had never existed, a grandmother's necklace, chargers that were mine. When I asked her to list specifics, she stopped responding. Then she escalated again. She called my workplace, pretending to be a medical office, claiming urgent test results. The receptionist forwarded the call to my desk. I recognized her voice instantly. Impersonating medical staff is illegal, I said evenly. This is harassment. The next contact goes through a lawyer. You can't threaten me, she snapped. I know your secrets. I almost laughed. My secrets were recipe searches and gym progress. Terrifying. The real turning point came at my gym. It was 6:30 a.m. I was mid-set when I saw her at the front desk, gesturing wildly. A staff member approached me. Ma'am, this woman says she's your girlfriend. She forgot her ID. She's my ex, I said clearly. We broke up 5 days ago. She's not authorized. Don't do this, Emma called out. You're humiliating me. You did that yourself, I replied. Security escorted her out. Her membership, which I had been paying for, was flagged and canceled. She screamed about me ruining her wellness journey. She hadn't stepped foot in that gym in 2 years. That afternoon, her friend Chloe called me. Just take her back, she begged. She's been crying on my couch nonstop. That's not my responsibility. She made a mistake. Everyone tests relationships. Healthy people don't, I said. And testing someone by threatening to leave isn't love. She's talking about doing something drastic. Like what? She bought a bus ticket to her ex's town. I paused, then said, I hope they're happy. It was a bluff, just another attempt to make me chase. I blocked her everywhere and kept living. And that's when she realized something that terrified her. I wasn't playing anymore. The lowest point didn't arrive with tears or screaming or some dramatic collapse to the floor. It arrived quietly, on an ordinary morning, when I realized I was no longer dealing with a breakup. I was dealing with someone who couldn't accept loss. I'm 31. I work in sales. I'm practical by nature, grounded, not someone who panics easily. And yet, for the first time in my adult life, I found myself double-checking locks, scanning parking lots, noticing cars that slowed down near my office. That was when it hit me. This wasn't about love anymore. After I blocked him everywhere, the silence should have settled. Instead, it grew louder in other ways. Friends started calling with awkward pauses before speaking. Hey, just checking in. Coworkers glanced at me differently, like they were waiting for something to happen. One afternoon, my receptionist pulled me aside. "There's been a man calling, asking if you're available. He says it's personal." My stomach tightened. I already knew. Later that same day, I saw him. He wasn't inside the building. He'd learned that line. He was sitting in his car across the street during lunch, watching the entrance. Not waving, not calling, just waiting. That night, I sat alone on my couch, lights off, phone face down beside me, and for the first time since this started, I felt afraid. Not of him hurting me physically, but of how far he was willing to go to avoid accepting reality. I replayed everything in my head. Every time he'd joked about breaking up, every time he'd said he was just testing me, every time I'd reassured him instead of calling it what it was. I wondered how much of this I had unknowingly trained him to expect. The thought made my chest ache. I didn't miss him. I missed who I thought he was. And that grief hit harder than I expected. That night, I cried quietly, not because I wanted him back, but because I finally understood how deeply unsafe emotional manipulation can become when it's left unchecked. I realized how close I'd come to staying in something that required me to constantly prove my worth. I opened my laptop and began organizing everything. Screenshots, dates, times, voicemails, camera footage, gym reports, office logs, not out of revenge, out of self-preservation. When I finished, the folder sat on my desktop like a line I could no longer pretend didn't exist. I didn't want to take legal action. I didn't want things to escalate, but I wanted my life back. And that meant accepting a truth I'd been avoiding. Loving him had never been the problem. Letting him test me had been. The turning point didn't come when he showed up at my gym. It didn't come when he sat in his car outside my office. And it didn't even come when fear finally reached my chest. It came when I stopped asking myself why he was doing this and started asking a much more important question. Why was I still protecting his feelings at the cost of my safety? I'm 31. I'm a woman who built her life carefully. I work hard. I pay my bills. I value peace. And yet here I was, structuring my days around someone who no longer had any place in my life except the one I was still unconsciously allowing. That realization was sobering. The next escalation forced clarity. One afternoon, HR called me into a private room. Their tone was calm, professional, but serious. Security had noticed a familiar car parked near the building during lunch again. Same person, same pattern, not entering, not violating anything directly, just hovering. I felt my hands go cold as I listened. They offered to call the police. They offered to document it. They asked what I wanted to do. For the first time, the decision was entirely mine. "Next time," I said quietly. "If it happens again." The next day, it did. This time, he wasn't just sitting in the car. He was holding a sign. "Let's talk." Something inside me snapped into place. Not anger, not panic. Certainty. Security called the police. The officer issued a formal warning. He was told, clearly, to stop contacting me. Stop showing up. Stop attempting communication in any form. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the folder on my laptop. The evidence, the pattern, the truth laid out without emotion. I realized something painful but freeing. This wasn't cruel. This wasn't dramatic. This was necessary. I filed for a restraining order the next morning. Not to punish him, not to prove a point, but to reclaim my life. When the paperwork was submitted, when the process began moving without me needing to explain or justify myself, a weight lifted off my body in a way I didn't know was possible. I slept through the night for the first time in weeks. I stopped scanning rooms, stopped checking reflections in windows, stopped bracing for the next disruption. For the first time since that text message, I felt grounded again. And I understood something clearly. Power doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from walking away and refusing to be pulled back. The fallout didn't explode all at once. It unfolded slowly, methodically, the way consequences tend to arrive when no one is intervening to soften them anymore. 2 weeks after I filed for the restraining order, the hearing date was set. I didn't feel anxious the way I thought I would. By then, the emotional chaos had burned itself out. What remained was documentation, facts, patterns, truth without performance. Before the hearing, the damage had already begun to surface on his side. Friends who had once echoed his version of events started asking quieter questions. Why so many calls? Why so many appearances? Why the joke had escalated into workplace harassment? Screenshots circulated. Security reports existed. Gym staff statements were written. HR documentation was real. When people saw the timeline laid out cleanly, sympathy shifted into distance. His family pulled back first. I didn't hear from them directly, but word travels. His mother stopped answering his calls as frequently. His parents insisted he move back home and start paying rent. The narrative that he had been abandoned over nothing didn't survive exposure to evidence. Then came the twist he clearly thought would restore his leverage. He started dating someone new. Her name was Derek. He sent Derek to confront me. I opened my door to a stranger puffed up with borrowed confidence, repeating lines he'd clearly been fed, that I was abusive, that I had thrown him out unfairly, that I had ruined his life with legal threats. I didn't argue. I showed Derek the filings, the police report, the porch camera footage, the text admitting it was a test, the gym incident, the office calls. Derek went quiet. She told me you were stalking her, he said slowly. I wasn't, I replied. Run while you can. He left without another word. Within minutes, my phone lit up with voicemails I didn't answer. His anger had nowhere left to go but inward. At the hearing, the judge was blunt. Ma'am, she said to him, you initiated the breakup. She accepted. Everything that followed constitutes harassment. He tried to argue it was a misunderstanding, that I knew he was joking. The judge looked unimpressed. Why joke about ending a relationship? His answer was quiet, to see if she loved me. The courtroom went still. That, the judge said, is manipulation, not communication. The order was granted. 500 feet from me, my home, my workplace, no contact, no intermediaries, no loopholes. After that, his world shrank quickly. Friends stopped hosting him. Derek disappeared. One roommate asked him to leave. He violated the order once by sending a letter through a mutual friend and was mandated into therapy as a result. He lost his job not long after. Unrelated, but unsurprising. Chaos has a way of catching up to people who manufacture it. I didn't celebrate any of it. I just lived. My apartment felt like mine again. I replaced decor I never liked. I reclaimed quiet. I got a raise at work. I went to the gym without scanning the room. I slept. The strangest part wasn't watching his life unravel. It was realizing how peaceful mine became when I stopped absorbing his consequences for him. 6 months have passed since that text message changed everything. 6 months since I learned, in the most uncomfortable way possible, that peace is not something you negotiate for. It's something you choose and defend. My life is calm now. Not the fragile calm that depends on someone else's mood, but the steady kind that comes from knowing my boundaries are real and enforced. I've dated casually, nothing serious, nothing rushed. I've focused on work and earned a raise I'd been quietly working toward for years. My home finally looks like me again. No stage decor, no props for someone else's image, no tension in the air. A few weeks ago, I ran into his mother at a store. The moment was awkward but polite. She looked tired, older than I remembered. I'm sorry, she said softly. He's working on himself now. Therapy, consequences. He knows he messed up. I nodded. I hope it helps. She studied me for a second, then said something that stayed with me. You were good to him. He had it good. Had. Past tense. That was enough closure. Looking back, I don't regret agreeing to the breakup. I regret how long I tolerated the threat of it. I regret confusing tests with communication, intensity with intimacy, chaos with passion. Love doesn't require you to pass exams you didn't sign up for. It doesn't demand you prove yourself by enduring emotional whiplash. Here's the truth I wish more people understood. When someone threatens to leave to control you, let them. When someone says, I was just testing you, believe what they're admitting. And when someone turns love into leverage, the relationship is already over. I didn't win by packing his things. I didn't win by filing paperwork. I didn't win because his life unraveled afterward. I won the moment I stopped chasing someone who needed me insecure to feel powerful. He's with someone new now. From what I've heard, they break up weekly and make up dramatically. A perfect fit. I'm testing new grilling recipes and hitting new personal records at the gym. Both are far more satisfying. The lesson is simple, even if it's hard. If someone wanted to stay, they wouldn't test you by pretending to leave. And if leaving is a joke to them, staying will always cost you more than it's worth. I only regret one thing, not calling his bluff sooner.